Hello, my name is Jasmine Gan and I'm the Australian Outlook editor, the blog of the Australian Institute of International Affairs. So today I'm joined by Tom Switzer, the Executive Director of the Centre of Independent Studies in Sydney. Thank you for joining us.
Jasmine, it's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So Tom, today you just gave an excellent presentation with the title of The End of the Rules-Based Liberal International Order. It's a rather alarming title. The rules-based liberal international order is a rather hot topic right now, but you say that you're against the common view. What is the common view, and can you explain why you're against it?
Well, I think the conventional wisdom is that the liberal international order that was created really at the end of the Cold War, there were several fatal flaws that characterised the liberal international law. And in my remarks, I just try to identify them. I think there were noble intentions. I think there's a lot to be said for the liberal international order, but it was doomed from the start. It contained the seeds of its own downfall, which is why it's in a mess today, and it's going to be very difficult to repair.
In that case, then why do you think that the conventional wisdom with Trump's presidency and his America First agenda, that kicked off the end of the rules-based international order? Why is that so prevalent?
There's no question that Donald Trump's America First policy represents a threat to the liberal international order. But my point tonight is that the so-called rules-based liberal international order was under siege well before Donald Trump's debut on the global stage. The Iraq invasion of 2003 was not in keeping with a rules-based international order, nor was Russia's incursion in Crimea in 2014, nor was China's military expansion in the South China Sea starting in 2012. So there have been many examples during the course of the last 15 years where we've seen real cracks develop in the liberal international order.
Could you go in a bit more and explain what exactly are these inherent flaws in the rules-based international order?
There are many. I've come up with 6. I think one was the idea that democracy was the wave of the future. This was the orthodoxy in the late 1980s and the early 1990s with Frank Fukuyama's The End of History thesis. The view was that history was on democracy's side, and for a while there that looked like to be the case. 1986 there were something like 37% of the world's countries were democracies. That number went up to about 47% in 2006, but since then democracy has been backsliding all across the world. So that was one fatal flaw. Other fatal flaws was this belief in global consensus, when in actual fact, as power becomes more diverse, then the likelihood of great powers and other states forming collective action to deal with public policy challenges, that's very limited. Another myth or fatal flaw was the idea that the political West would remain united in the post-Cold War era. That is self-evidently not true, particularly in Europe. Another fatal flaw was the idea that we're witnessing the end of nationalism. Clearly, with the reassertion of the European Union in the 90s and 2000s, that's led to a populist backlash, and that means a resurgence of nationalism, particularly in many parts of Europe. The 5th fatal flaw was the idea that the great powers would all cooperate, and the more that China and Russia were integrated into the liberal international order and became part of these institutions, they would adopt more peaceful foreign policies. That clearly hasn't happened. And of course the big fatal flaw was the notion that US unipolarity could guarantee that liberal international order. The Pax Americana is no more, and it's been fading fast well before Donald Trump entered the White House.
So given that you say that global cooperation and global consensus is pretty much just an idea that will probably never be realized now, and then given that Australia also is a nation that's benefited, I would say, quite greatly from whatever existed of the liberal international order, what kind of recommendations, or what do you think our friends in Canberra should be doing now?
Well, nothing dramatic. I mean, I think the US alliance, for example, should be the centrepiece of our alliance and our foreign policy outlook, but I think that it should dawn on both sides of politics that the United States is, especially under this president, very erratic and intemperate. It doesn't make sense to give unconditional and unqualified support to Uncle Sam. I think there's no question that US allies will have to start increasing their own defence budgets. And I think from Australia's perspective, it continues to make a lot of sense to escalate that engagement with East Asia, particularly Southeast Asia and perhaps Japan. Nothing dramatic, but I think that we have benefited from the liberal international order, and particularly when it comes to free trade. But Australia can still adopt free trade without worrying about what other countries are doing.
All right. Thank you very much for your comments tonight, Tom. It's been very illuminating.
Thanks, Jasmine.